Thank you so much to everybody for coming out to the meeting, the First District meeting. Love to see each and every one of you. I hope you had the opportunity to go on the walk. If you have any questions, concerns, or anything that you want to bring up, whether it be good or bad, hopefully it's all good. You could email our office, and my email address is thampton@cityofpasadena.net. And then also our field liaison, Kushan Bell, is in the room. Miss Bell. Her email address is cbell@cityofpasadena.net. I know most of you guys already have our email information. I know most of y'all. And our phone number is really easy to remember as well. It's area code 626-744-4444. Isn't that easy number? Like, I tell people that all the time. Like, my number is 744-4444. I mean, if you can't remember that number, maybe you don't really have a concern. Like, I want to, before we start off, I want to give big thanks to Pastor Larry Campbell for opening up this beautiful community space for us to have this meeting. Pastor Campbell, if you'd like to come up and say a few words, please.
Well, good evening to each of you. I want to welcome you to our church, which is a part of the community. So you be at home. I thank God for the opportunity to open the doors so that we can come and discuss what's going on in our community. So welcome.
Thank you, Pastor. And at this time, we are going to be talking about improvements to Raymond Avenue. There have been significant concerns about the speed of cars on Raymond Avenue. Also, the tragic events that have happened on Raymond Avenue just recently. At the corner here, about a year. It's been about a year. There was October. Okay, so there was a fatality of 2 individuals died at this corner, and so our transportation department has a plan to try to slow down the traffic on this street. Well, there's an elementary school right here, and I want to thank all of the neighbors that have reached out over the years to ask about what's going on with Raymond Avenue. Raymond Avenue, we have something called a collector road. I don't know if everybody's familiar with that, but at one point in time, Raymond Avenue was considered a collector road. So that was the first step, was to remove that classification from the state standards from being a collector road. And so our Department of Transportation had this street removed, of course, because of the neighbors. With all the emails and everything and communication and neighborhood walks, we made sure that happened. The next step was figuring out what an actual plan is for this street. The Transportation Department had a plan prior to this most recent incident, and now we are looking at moving forward with installing this plan by summer. That's the goal. It was spring, but of course, water and weather changed a lot of things. But it is for the summer. So there will be some plans going up this summer. At this time, I have the Director of Transportation. He will come up and he will give a presentation. We're going to have the Transportation Department first. Right after that, we're going to have a underground discussion from the Department of Water and Power. And then at the end, we'll have any questions that you have. Thank you. Joaquin.
Thanks.
By the way, our new Director of Transportation, welcome, Joaquin.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate this. I think one of the things that we get out of our department is being able to hear what you see on the street. We're not able to be on Raymond Avenue every day, so we want to hear your experiences. We want to hear what concerns you have, and we have been hearing a lot of that through Councilmember Hampton's office and through Ms. Sean Bell. So I appreciate you coming out to this meeting. Thank you for providing this opportunity for us to be here. With me today, I have Donson Liu. He's an engineer in our department, and he's been working on this process for some time now to see how we can really slow down speeds along this corridor. As Councilmember Hampton noted, it was a collector street before. We were able to get it reclassified as a local street. It provides us more opportunity to do more different treatments on the street to really slow down traffic, and that's our goal here, is to slow down traffic. There's different classifications in the state and the way, actually the federal and the state classification system. And a collector street means it's collecting traffic from local streets into major arterials like principal streets. So it's technically meant to carry more traffic. It's meant to be, typically they're a little bit more auto-centric, whereas Raymond is really a local street. It has a lot of residential, it has a bike facility, but there's still traffic on here that's moving a lot faster than what we would like. So our intent with this project is to really reduce that speed, but also looking at ways to improve connectivity and access for pedestrians and bicyclists. Again, with me today, I have Duncan Liu. He's going to talk a little bit about how we got to this process and what the recommended treatments are that we anticipate having installed this summer. Duncan?
Thank you, Joaquin. So I'm Duncan Liu. I'm an engineer with the city of Pasadena. Haven't been here at the city as long as Joaquin. We might have said that he's a new director, but he's been here at the city since I was in high school. Okay, all right, yeah, all right.
Since the inception of the city.
Yeah. No, so we're actually really lucky. Joaquin, knows the history of a lot of things in the city that may have been lost to time and how computer upgrades go. But just briefly going through the Raymond Neighborhood Traffic Management Program. This is a program that was started around 2021 when just talking to residents and especially at the cooperation and urging of Councilmember Hampton's office, really collected some of the neighborhood concerns around traffic that aren't just one-off concerns like, there may be someone at 2 a.m. These are concerns that we've heard, regularly over the years. So we decided to kind of implement a more concerted effort to see what we can do to help reduce speeds, reduce some reckless driving and things like that. Raymond's a little challenging because, as was mentioned, the street classification, but there's also some other challenges. Like, for example, it's rare that in this, time that the entire street is concrete. You'll notice most streets are asphalt throughout the city. So unlike some other programs or other streets where we can easily, go to a vote, collect some data, figure out if we can put down speed humps or not. Until recently, we didn't think speed humps were a viable option for a concrete street. And that's mainly because if you put asphalt down on concrete, it's going to wear away in a matter of years. So it's not really a great solution. So based on this process that was started in 21, we hired a consultant. We collected all sorts of traffic data, some crash data, and figured out that there is a speeding issue. So even though it's 25, we know speeds here are much closer to 35 or higher, which is definitely not ideal compared, considering the fact that we have a church, 2 schools, and some elderly living facilities up and down the block. So as part of that, we did some initial outreach and figured out that and talked to some stakeholders such as the principal and admin of Washington Elementary. We came out a bunch of times, just kind of during weekdays and strange times to see how traffic behaves. Definitely documented the donuts that you see in the intersections, and came up with a plan that you may have received a letter for if you live on Raymond, kind of detailing what we plan on doing and how this works in terms of, figuring out what we can do in the future. The unique thing about Raymond is that because of Water and Power's undergrounding project, we have about a 2-year window, I would say maybe one and a half, 2-year window before construction really begins in this part of the neighborhood where the entire street will get completely rebuilt, completely transformed. So in that time, we want to put down some trial, kind of like rubber materials to see, okay, is this a good fit for the neighborhood? Is this something that will slow passengers or drivers down while also, making sure that residents live along the street have full access and full use of their neighborhood. We don't want to make it so restrictive that you have to drive around in circles to get to your doorstep. That's not really the point of this program. So the plan right now is we have put out a bid. We've received some offers on rubber speed tables. So if you don't know what a speed table is, it's like a speed hump, but more gentle. So not like the ones on Marengo or Penn, like slightly longer and more gentle, but it should still curb excessive speeding. So you may drive over it comfortably at 25, but if you're going, 35-ish, you're gonna really feel it. So that's really based on kind of design and shape of this device. This is something that's still pretty new to the region. If you visit the city of LA, they have a handful of streets where they've tried it. We've visited a handful of times. We've talked to their engineers and are happy with the results of these devices. So we're excited to put them in this summer. We're going through the bids right now. They will be rubber, so they'll be temporary. But by temporary, I mean they'll still last several years unless you really tear them out. And then during that time when they're in, we'll see and observe how traffic behaves. We'll talk to residents, host more meetings, and really get an idea of, how do you like the changes on your street? Worst case, if you don't like them, as undergrounding comes in and, rebuilds the street, we'll do something else. I know another major concern, that's a second part of this program, is the U-turns in front of Washington Elementary during drop-off and pickup. I know we drive here on weekdays all the time. We notice that parents are double parked. People are making really risky three-point turns in the middle of the street. As part of that, in that letter, you may have seen that we're putting in kind of these plastic separators here and there to really discourage crossing that center line. The tricky thing is making sure that they're spaced far enough apart where if you live on the west side of the street, you can still make a left into your driveway. So that's something that we're working on. We're excited to implement this summer. And so that's where we're at right now. And that's why you probably haven't heard from us. We're trying to put this stuff in and just to kind of, see how people like it before we do anything else.
Maybe you could talk about the plan and how many
Oh, yeah.
speed tables there will be, where they're going to be located.
Yeah, sure. So we try to space them out from Washington all the way to Montana, about every 300 to 400 feet. There will be 9 total speed tables. They're 22 feet long, so they're substantial. That's about a little bit longer than a regular passenger car. But we've placed them in places that will not disrupt driveways. And we've tried to put a couple more closer to the school and closer down by La Pintoresca, where we know that there's a lot more pedestrian activity, and we really want to make sure that people are slowing down at those areas. So there will be 9 total. We have the specific addresses, but they're still kind of in flux because once we get them in place and we're out there putting them in, we might shift them, 10 feet here, 10 feet there.
How will they accommodate service vehicles, bicycles, and so forth?
Yeah, so the great thing about speed tables is that they're gentle enough where our fire department, we've vetted them, we've tried out the ones in LA. They're happy with how gentle they are to still maintain their response times. So we're not concerned so much about service vehicles, emergency access, things like that. With the bike lanes, we're going to have to put them in, I think we're putting them slightly outside of the bike lanes that exist. Yeah, so they'll be between the bike lanes, at least for this trial. Depending on how this trial goes in the permanent street design after the undergrounding project, we may widen them to include a parking lane. So for example, if for whatever reason we get a lot of reckless driving behavior where they're driving around the humps into the bike lane and into the parking lane to avoid these, pretty gentle speed tables, then, that's something that we can look at after the trial. Not at this time. We want to focus on where it's needed most, and from what we've observed, it's the drop off and pick up in front of Washington Elementary where it's the most needed. But if we put in the device, it's well received, it's working well, then we can consider expanding it. But right now, we don't see too many mid-block U-turns up and down the street. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely something that we'll be looking at next on ways that we can prevent that. Yeah, I noticed that too when I drive it, pretty regularly just to kind of check out how our various signs and things are doing. And that's definitely something that I share your concern with. And that's something that we've always worked with the school administration on. The reason for that double parking is because there's a lot of, I would say, parents that think they can stop in a no stopping zone. So this whole curb in front of the school is technically a drop-off zone to prevent that double parking. So technically the curb, the parking lane, is a drop-off lane. Over the years, we've tried more and more signage to enforce that. We really, I would say, want to avoid a situation where we hand out tickets every day to parents. I don't think that really solves anything. That's something that no one in the city really wants to do. But I think with more messaging, and especially with the hardened center line to make it harder, I think it'll force parents that are double parked into thinking, I can't just block traffic. I can't expect people to go around me because they can't, and they're more likely to. Yeah, they're blocking traffic, but if there's something that prevents the people behind them from going around them, and they'll just get honked at by 4 people the minute they stop in the bike lane to do it, we're thinking that, that should hopefully prevent some of that behavior.
So this might be a crazy question, but I'm curious. Given that Howard Street that cuts through the campus was relinquished to the school, have you guys considered having that be the drop-off zone?
There's no freeway. Well, you have to go through the middle school.
Well, yeah, it goes through. That's what I mean. I don't know if you guys have talked about that, but it's just an idea that I'm curious if it's been explored.
Yeah, that's something we've explored with admin and PUSD. I think they, at least the last few years, because of COVID, they had real security and access concerns, and I think that was the last time we talked to them about it. But that's something that we can always kind of prod them with. But ultimately, the street is theirs, and they answer to the California Board of Education. Yeah. They don't necessarily have to listen to us sometimes.
Sure. And I ask that not to put you on the spot. I'm just curious. Because it seems like you could set it up so that everybody understands they go in one side and out the other side. And I'm just thinking about it because I know, like, for example, Norma Coombs, right? Their parking lot is such that people pull in, drop off, and pull out. So it seems like a golden opportunity for the school. And so really we just have to convince the school district then?
Yeah, I think so. But
I see.
From our conversations, the school district does have, very valid concerns around letting people onto campus at elementary schools.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Excuse me how I look. I've been working in the yard all day, but thanks. So Anthony, I love riding bikes, and coming on this bike lane is incredibly bumpy. It's just really not pleasant at all. In fact, we avoid it. And so is there a way of smoothing it out, making it nice?
I want to steal Bill's thunder, but he'll go over that. But the answer is yes, eventually, yes.
The question was, is there still traffic enforcement throughout the city? I can answer that question. There is still traffic enforcement. I receive emails from neighbors regularly saying, I got a ticket, can you help me out? So I want to let everybody know that there is traffic enforcement. Traffic enforcement can come out to enforce the street. Traffic enforcement has come out to enforce the street, and a lot of the individuals that were getting tickets, which is unfortunate, are the folks that live on the street. And so that's always kind of like the balance, is making sure that we are issuing warnings to the folks that are driving through, because we have lots of people driving through that are going up to Altadena, right? Or they're going from Altadena into the city, or trying to catch the freeway because the street is so wide here. But there is traffic enforcement. We could have them come out. And as was mentioned, in the beginning of the school year, there was a bit of an issue, and that's the reason why the traffic enforcement stopped coming out as prevalent because a lot of the parents that were dropping their kids off on the first day of school, I want to say there was like 20 tickets issued to parents on the street. So that was an issue for the first day of school. And so the police department reduce all those tickets to warnings. But that's always that's just the delicate balance in working with school age families and children. But
so we work pretty closely with the police department to identify hotspots for speeding and reckless behavior. And I can assure you that we use all the data that we have, whether it's speed data, collision data, crash reports, Even the speed feedback signs can sometimes tell us when the worst parts of the day are, to really direct traffic enforcement to be the most effective they can be citywide. So that's something we definitely review every month, if not more frequently.
I have a question, and maybe this may help with some of the concerns as well. As we were going on our neighborhood walk, I noticed that because this is a concrete street, the lines are not very visible. And maybe the concrete just doesn't hold the paint like an asphalt street would. Is there plans to restripe the street while we're doing the speed tables?
Not while we're doing the speed tables, mainly because if we can try, we can see if we can refreshen it up and get on maintenance schedule. But I think part of the trouble that we have with concrete streets is that white paint just doesn't contrast as well on concrete as it does on asphalt. I will still steal Bill's thunder here in that after undergrounding, the street will be rebuilt in asphalt, so we will get that higher contrast, better lane assignment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we will move on, and I guess if there are any questions for transportation at the end of the meeting, they'll still be here.
Yep.
But we're going to move on to Bill and water and power. Should I have gone up there? Or it was okay for me to do it from right here, right? To twist it.
Hey,
Bill.
good morning. It's already morning. Afternoon, evening. Anyways, pardon the congestion on my end, dealing with some nice, beautiful spring allergies, but here to talk to you today about the, let's say, program or project updates for the Raymond Underground District. So boundaries, again, just depended on who was at the previous community meeting last May when we were, basically relaunching the project. We have project boundaries from Maple down at the freeway all the way up to the North City border just north of Montana. So it spans the entire 2-mile plus stretch of Raymond Avenue. The project will span a 3-year time period, with the first year being the installation of what we would call the dry utilities, the power vaults, and the underground conduit infrastructure that's in the right-of-way, basically the entire stretch. And then also at that time, the telecom utilities we'd be putting in their infrastructure in a joint trench as well. So again, we're only cutting the street up once to do essentially all 3 utilities in that pass. And then after that, we would be both in parallel with our internal electric crews installing the underground cabling backbone and the transformers for the eventual, which will work in unison, the cutover of each individual house to the underground system in that second year. And then as we close out the second year, since services will actually be cut over directly to the underground system, we can start to remove the overhead wires and then eventually the poles, leaving the final year for the street light installation. So, and Public Works has their designs for the new street light system that will, expand out through. Again, they have their details on those particular designs. We'll provide them the power feed points, and then the rest of it is up to them to install there, followed by the final piece, which would be the street resurfacing, sidewalks, curbs, gutters, different things like that, anything that's going to be public right-of-way within that district, since definitely from stem to stern of the district, there's definitely a great need for attention there. So basically, there's, no limitations to what basically is going to need to be just completely resurfaced. Just walking out here down towards Grandview, again, we walked across a sidewalk that needed great attention, or you had telecom with clearance issues, or whatever the case may be. Essentially, over the patience is always appreciated, but over the course of that project duration, we're going to be building in the infrastructure so we can eventually turn the street into what really a grand view of what it should be. Updates in terms of the schedule. Obviously, there's a lot of project coordination going on. So it was basically universally accepted to launch the construction of the public right-of-way work in January instead of in July, which again would be just right around the corner, given that we have the water department also working on Fair Oaks with a few spot pieces of work up on Raymond as well. So we wanted them to be fully clear of the job site. And then it did offer the transportation department an opportunity to come in and test the speed table provisions and things like that. We were currently in the process of procuring a contractor, so it would have been tight down to that window, but it is in everyone's best project coordination interest to launch there after the moratorium lifts in January of 2025, and then we'll again start that 3-year phase of the project with the most invasive portion being first, and then the electrical conversion, and then eventually the streetlights and street resurfacing. So to recap a couple of questions that did pop up, just kind of preemptively getting them out of the way. For the individual service conversions of each house, those are planned out already in design. We have, basically anybody that's within the district that's established of 20 feet from the right-of-way, Maple all the way, again, North City border, that is served from the right-of-way from Raymond within the district would be converted to underground, and both the right-of-way portion and the private property conversion, getting that underground conduit, would be handled. No out-of-pocket expenses to the customer. That's something we wanted to restructure differently. We did have some, just not necessarily resistance, but difficulties was making sure that the process went smoothly. So in time, access letters will be issued for just making sure we have clearance and access to make those conversions smooth, so that essentially one group is coming in and making that connection, and then it's no out-of-pocket expenses and reimbursement, as was the old protocol. It's just, since it's coming directly out of the fund, we're working it just directly as one coordinated effort. So hopefully that's going to work out a lot in our favor. And that, again, was kind of a point of contention if customers just all of a sudden had to front for essentially an underground conversion and then get paid back. That time value was often difficult. So we're trying to just cure that outright with the structure of our contract. And then the other part was the joint trenching of the power utilities with the 2 comm utilities. So again, we're only cutting up the street once. It's not 3 separate cuts of 3 different construction crews just going wild in the street. That would be that would be one level of chaos. And then when it comes to notifications, this is actually a perfect kind of bridge the gap to when we usually would hold the next community meeting, which would be about 3 to 4 months before the construction starts. So say like October or so. And then we would be, issuing all of notices and stuff as we get closer with some more of the details. We do still have our Underground Utility District Program website. If you go to pwpweb.com, there is the construction projects tab. And if you go into the Underground Utility District Program, under the construction projects tab, you'll find basically information and the recordings from the May meeting last year when we were launching it. Essentially everything holds true except for the start date, which we're again targeting January and not July, but that was just again for overall project coordination. So I can definitely go through any of the detailed questions. I'm not blessed by the 14 easels we had of visual aid the first meeting that actually shows the details of each of the conversions. All of that basically holds true. We have our design all ready to go, and we're just making sure we can get that contractor that's going to do our dry utilities first. That's kind of just our only really remaining item, and then the rest is hopefully getting these speed tables in, and then making sure that we don't have too many construction projects in one area, and we're going to let water just finish their main replacement on Fair Oaks, since it's obviously just the next adjacent street. So I guess this is where we're opening the questions, but anything to do with the district itself, I think I did cover all of the main items. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I could
Relay?
happy to relay that message.
The work that's being done now in Raymond
Yes, that's the water department.
The question was, the work that is being done on Raymond right now is?
The water department, they have a major main replacement project that's going on Fair Oaks, and then there's some spillover to connection points where they're actually one of the other residents was mentioning that some vaults being set for the valves in the street. That's some of the work that's going on now, and that's why it's in our best interest to just make sure we let them get complete and clear before we start to move on. So it's just Raymond, again, 20 feet from the right-of-way. It's, again, the 2-mile stretch from Maple to north of Montana to the city border. But yes, just Raymond. We will have some small provisions to like basically future underground expansion down the little side streets, but that expansion will actually only be a few feet down those streets, just so that we have a future provision to pick up a little more easily, so that if customers wish to underground, there's an easier place to pick up than trying to launch back into Raymond to get to underground infrastructure. So we do have it planned in, but it is just Raymond.
Wondering about your provisions for connecting existing customers.
Yes.
Are you just going to be putting a pull box adjacent to the existing service panel and using the existing facility, and then just doing a nipple between it and then putting a seal on the pull box? Or are you planning on taking out the whole service panel and meter socket and replacing it with an underground panel?
So it was covered in the first underground meeting, where we do actually have a essentially like a little key that shows what type of conversion each panel was to receive, because we have had service planners and engineers walk the entire job stem to stern to verify what is the conversion method that's described there. At the next community meeting, that will be re-presented. We don't have any planned changes to what the provisions are, and essentially there's going to be like a panel, like the 2-panel setup to jump, or a panel conversion, depending on if the panel was compatible to go immediately overhead to underground, or in rare replacements, if condition or ability to make the connection wasn't possible, then a panel replacement would be possible there. But each one of those designations was made already in the design. We will, again, re-present it at the next community meeting in October, as we're about 3 to 4 months out. More or less, the general circumstance still holds true. If you wish to have something that's separate from what was basically paid for by the Underground Utility District program, you can pay out of pocket to get something different, but essentially we would pay for the conversion that is most appropriate to make the existing connection get to the underground system.
So if the existing panel doesn't have provision to bring a conduit in the bottom, you would most likely put a pull box adjacent and a nipple through, and then a seal on the pull box.
Yes, or a double panel setup, depending on what exists there. Because again, the internal guts or the provisions for knockouts are going to really dictate whether it's there. But yes, there's going to be underground conduit to, let's just generically call it a pull section, and then into the existing panel.
Okay.
And then we can just chop the weather
limited
out.
Space, you're going to try and adjust the location of the box to make the space work?
That's, again, it's specified on the design itself. There's some of them where if there is limited space, that's where a conversion of the panel itself is the only option. And again, that will be coordinated as part of that job, because we can wait with the underground just the 90-degree sweep away, and then at the time of conversion, make the panel replacement, and then bring in the final 10 feet of conduit and
the problem if you replace the whole panel is a lot of the residents are going to have a lot of conduits coming out for the branch circuits.
Yeah, so
both
definitely.
above and
But
down.
again, panel replacement for any licensed electrician is pretty standard work, and that's only a multi-hour project in a single day. So
Right.
For the grand scope of the project as a whole, that's not too much of a bear for us. We're not too worried, because again, it's only a few particular provisions where space is essentially impossible, that we cannot do a conversion, like pull section to a conversion, as opposed to a total panel replacement.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
But sir, if you give your exact address to me.
I don't remember.
Oh, you don't know? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
no worries.
Yeah, we do get the nice technical questions with exactly those conversions, and even some of the coordinated work with the other departments. Anything's fair game. Yeah, we know what we're doing, and we're trying to make this the launch of this program as smooth as possible. We've had some nice recent successes with Hill Avenue and with Alpine Street. That if you look at the Google Street View images before and after, that's again the level of impact we're seeking. It's really an absolute transformation of the right of way that's there, and then as coordinated with DOT and with Public Works, those the street resurfacing, the quality of the actual physical road you drive on, the safety features, whether it's speed humps or speed tables, barriers for U-turn prevention. Again, that's going to be in the Public Works and DOT's scope. That again, they have time until the end of the job to perfect exactly what's needed there. So. We happen to be on the power side coordinating the job, but we definitely want the experts in each one of their fields to put the design and attention that's appropriate to what the community's needs are into each part of their scope as well. So,
any other power-related questions?
Thank you, sir.
To piggyback off of what Donson had mentioned
The question,
before.
I'm sorry, just so that the camera's clear. The question was, is there a timeline to when all this construction will begin, and how will it work with the speed tables and everything else that is going on in Raymond? Is that okay? Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So, general timeline for the entire job is up on the website. It should actually probably reflect the old one. We're in the midst of updating it now for the January start, but essentially everything just shifts back linearly 6 months. Honestly, in the next couple of weeks, it'll be updated anyways. But the coordination between the two groups, the temporary speed table provisions would be this summer, and then they would persist until essentially the excavation reached the physical speed table itself. So our current projection in terms of how we're going to start the project is going to be in a dual start point. We're going to run 2 crews, one at the southernmost extent of the job, starting at Raymond. We're on Raymond. At Maple, and then one at Claremont. Again, this is the street just south of Washington, and then we would sweep, in parallel, going northbound, so that there's essentially no conflict of the 2 crews. They're separated by many blocks, and so that will be, again, the ease of construction, and then also where the speed tables are going in are from Washington up. So we will leapfrog, get a small local street to start, and then leapfrog Washington before we start to move up to each one of those impacts. Luckily, with the discussion so far, the speed tables themselves are physically modular, so we can trench up to the location, have the crew, let's say the day before, disassemble the speed table temporarily to make the transition, and then once that has been safely brought back up to pave, and you've filled in the trench from before and it's not in temporary steel plates, about a week later you can go ahead and close the speed table back up. If those are still desired, by the time we're reaching that trenching, we can leave them all the way until permanent provisions go in, where they tear up the street and then repave the street with whatever final design provisions are put in. So we have, I guess we would say, 2 options as they stay in for, let's say, about a year and a half or so, to when we reach the trenching, or the full 2 years in a temporary provision until the final design is put into place. So, or I guess that would be at the 3-year mark. So yeah, they would go in this July, and then, or whenever in the summer, and then we would only temporarily remove them to get past, reassemble, and then continue the trench work moving forward.
What's your estimation of completion date?
So if we're going to start in January as currently projected, that would go all the way till December of 2027. So again, it was the same 3-year process, 1 year for most of the right-of-way infrastructure, and then 1 year for the conversions and the electrical installation, and then the final year is the streetlight installation, pole removal, and resurfacing. And again, there's probably going to be some parallel action given that the district is so long, at 2 miles long. So. That's actually one thing that I really wish the Public Works representatives for the civil group was here, because they've recently been doing some research into what's the optimized way to go about that. Given that they're at the end of the project, they luckily can still be in the research phase. So sadly, I can't answer that directly, but with work that had been done on other streets, they are definitely very sensitive to the customer impact right now. So they are racking their brains on trying to make sure that that is as minimally invasive a process. Because again, a total street conversion from just the like the physical road perspective of removing all of the concrete and repouring an entire street of asphalt is a massive undertaking on its own. And again, if you're going to tear it up, where does the concrete go? How do you get by? Are there total street closures for the blocks that are being worked on? Again, normally that's the case, but again, they're going to try to work through some sort of provision to do it in the most acceptable way possible. But you can't prevent all levels of impact because, again, we all touch the road. So.
We have a question in the back.
Yes, as well. So
the question,
yeah.
I'm sorry. So the question was, will all of the utilities be undergrounded, including DirecTV, telecommunications, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. Each utility, once entering private property from the right-of-way, there will be a conduit for power guaranteed to every parcel, because that's what's physically required. Because everybody has power, and then dependent on your service provider, they will convert the existing service, and then there's essentially a future provision if you wish to switch service providers that is left in the street. In the overhead, it's physically easier to convert simply because they're already overhead and you just need to string something in the air. But with the installation of the infrastructure, all the utilities are going to go in together, and then we're going to basically try to reach every single house, or we are going to reach every single house with power, and then have the provisions for converting the existing telecom and leaving a future provision for like if you wish to switch to the competing entity in the street, it'll be there. So DirecTV is still going to be satellite based. That unless there's a local repeater staged on the overhead infrastructure, which is very, very uncommon. Any removal of the poles should not interrupt any satellite service. And then anybody that has like a digital subscriber line or dial-up or like cable TV or cable internet, again, is going to be some sort of physical overhead wire that now will be hidden underground in a conduit and then attached to wherever the appropriate place to make the service transition. So if you have a drop to the house, likely the conduit and like new hidden riser will be connecting back to that same place, so you don't have to rewire your whole house. Yes. Yeah, and that is the unfortunate invasive nature of that work, but the end result is essentially no poles in the street, no wires in the like visual space that you see, and in order to do that, it's pipes and lots of digging and wiring it now through the underground. So, absolutely, yeah.
I could say the question, or if you would like to come to the mic, whatever you want to do, yeah.
Well, how you doing? Good to see you, Greg. Yeah, I'm John Bledsoe. I live in the Sunset Oaks residential area. Live on Poplar Lane, which is a one-block cul-de-sac street. I have two questions. One has to do with, and I don't know whether or not this has been raised or not before, but you were mentioned about the very cable connections, the electrical connections, and this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. There are boxes, or there are stations which those powers originate from. My question is, who's responsible for the power source getting to the resident? I mean, if, as an example, I wanted to upgrade my power box, if there was a cost to get power from the box that's located somewhere in the street to the resident, who's responsible for those kind of costs?
Agnostic of the district program itself, if you have service in the Pasadena Water and Power Service territory for electric, regardless of how you're served overhead or underground. If you wish to seek a service upgrade, you would go to our electric service planning section and start the process with them. Just have an application for a service upgrade. Given that the service itself by nature is your connection to the utilities infrastructure for the sole service of power to your premises, that's going to be a cost to the customer directly. You're paying to upgrade your service to something greater. So if you have, let's say, an existing 100 amp panel to a house and you wish to go to a 200 amp panel for some sort of expansion of circuits or load at your house, that would be, again, something you would apply for a service upgrade for. When it comes to the district itself, the conversion that is happening is from the existing overhead infrastructure to a new underground system that is covered by the Underground Utility District program that has its funds dedicated to basically paying for those conversions. That's essentially existing power value, if you will, the amperage of the service that you have to the equivalent, but now just fed from the underground. So again, there's kind of two different particular situations. If there's infrastructure involved needing to be changed, and again, the first case where it's just you're an existing customer and you're wishing an upgrade from infrastructure that's not in the district, then there's usually some associated cost with that upgrade.
Let me tell you, I mean, you know, I some of that sounds like, you know, really complicated. I don't understand that. What I do understand is if I want to upgrade from, say, 100 amps to 200 amps, okay, I do understand that the power connection may be a block or half a block away, okay? So what I'm saying is the customer or the resident responsible for paying for getting the connection from the point of the power grid to their sidewalk?
So yeah, the work in the right of way for any service, again, agnostic of the district program, in the event that there's no infrastructure between you and where you wish to pick up from the utilities connection, that would be a cost to the customer for making that extension. Luckily, there are very few locations in the city where there's a massive gap between where there is existing service and where there isn't, because essentially every parcel that has service in a way that is, you know, directly fed. And if you wish for an upgrade that your existing infrastructure can accommodate it, you really just have to change out the panel, and we would change out the cable. And that's actually a fairly inexpensive conversion or upgrade, as opposed to, let's say, your example of like extending from the middle of the street to the sidewalk or something like that. That's not always very common, because we usually have provisions ready for you.
Yes, thank you, sir. I don't want to belong to time. If you will share your card, maybe I can get an appointment with you or somebody in the city of Pasadena to come down and discuss that very issue, because that's an issue that relates to where I live on Poplar Lane. The second thing is, and I don't know if this is something that's within your sphere of responsibility, but I have, on behalf of a lot of the small churches who have small parking lots, that there seems to be an arbitrary redlining or renting out parking, in front of some of those churches. I mean, not all, but some of the smaller churches, which would rely heavily on street parking to have their parishioners or their members have ample parking. So my inquiry is there a particular formula or something that's set up to determine where the redlining
That's definitely a Department of Transportation question. I'll make sure that he answers it because that's, again, the parking provision.
Okay. Thank you for that question. Yeah, we place red curb for all sorts of different reasons. Sometimes it's for a bus stop. Sometimes when bus stops change and move locations, the red curb may still be there. So we handle all red curb requests on a case-by-case basis. So, if you want to contact us, you can contact us through the City Service Center. That way, it'll definitely get you to someone in our department and assign someone to look at, whether that red curb is still needed and see if they can convert some of that back into parking. You can contact the City Service Center at 626-744-7311, or it's on the front page of the city website.
Do you have cards or communications? I mean, I'm not able to take the number down and this kind of thing. So, but that's an issue for a lot of smaller churches that the red it out so there's no parking at all really makes those persons be in a handicapped position because persons have to walk a whole block, and some of those persons are restricted in terms of their ability to walk. So maybe we can get a card and we can have some of those pastors individually come down and speak with you about that very concern. Is that possible?
Yeah, we're definitely happy to send out DOT staff to each location and review parking needs and figure out what we can and can't do.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Final question of the night.
This is undergrounding or
transportation? Yeah, undergrounding.
Undergrounding question.
You got to get a phone number for the last question.
No worries. Sorry, it's basically a follow-up from her question.
Yes.
So obviously, the existing cable internet service will be underground on the street.
Mm-hmm.
Will the undergrounding contain provision for future deployment of, say, fiber internet or additional internet service that's not currently present on the street, or would that represent a restriction on doing things, adding new service down the line?
So that's going to be up to the existing ISP to basically build in whatever level of provision they wish to seek for their system expansion. As the city entity, we have no direct control in terms of what they're going to put in there, but it is obviously in both AT&T and Charter's, because they're the ones that cover the entire stretch, in their best interest to leave future provisions for the expansion of fiber. Conveniently, when you do put in large underground backbone, you almost always have spare conduits, and you're having like full pull box and vault structure size provision, so they can put in basically what's the main backbone. Telecom usually has that like last mile problem where it's getting out to the customer, not necessarily getting from the main street. Essentially, we're building as a power department the main street infrastructure there. We do believe that each ISP is doing the same because, again, it's in their best business interest to have those upgrade provisions in place. And very rarely do they get a street opened up like that.
Got it. So basically, it's reliant upon them to pursue doing that.
Yeah, and we do not have any legal mechanism to force them. So,
is there I guess my question would be, is there a provision for, let's say, a few, obviously everyone knows home internet service is largely a duopoly in most regions where you live. Is there any provision to build in excess capacity or excess volume to allow, let's say, Frontier or Verizon or Earthlink or someone wanted to run fiber that was not part of the present provider network in this area?
So that would be up to, again, the ISPs to rent out their existing infrastructure.
Sure.
But again, because it's still very lucrative to them, a lot
Yeah.
of times it's like, hey, well, if we fronted the money, we can collect back.
Sure.
So a lot of times they can share. But again, it's still up to them. So.
Got it. And I guess the last little bit for this would be, obviously as a random consumer of Spectrum, they don't answer my questions if I ask them if they're deploying fiber internet on the street.
Right.
Is that something the city is informed of as part of the undergrounding work that could then be communicated out if they do if AT&T and Charter say, we are doing this, that information could be propagated out to other people?
So yeah, if we did have information that it was like going in natively with their deployment, the soonest I know, there's like no reason not to share
Sure.
that information. But we actually don't know what the exact system that they're putting in,
Right.
other than the dry utilities, because that's where we're most coordinating, is making sure we have the the joint trenches going, and we make the process of cutting over each one of the customers as minimally invasive as possible, though it is invasive.
Sure.
That we get that going smoothly. If we are able to get that information, we would like to share it, because again, that was the one question I wasn't able to answer last May, but
Yeah.
they still have not necessarily shared that with us
Okay,
either. So.
great, thank you.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, that's all she wrote. That was fun. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you for taking the walk with us prior to the meeting. And thank you so much for all of the emails, the phone calls, the coffees, just the conversation about what's going on in your neighborhood. As I like to tell my neighbors all the time, I say, it's never a bother to send me an email. I will definitely respond. And I'm not a mind reader, so it's really important that you guys communicate with us what's going on. And that's the reason why we have these neighborhood walks, so our city staff could actually see what's going on in the street. That we put policies together for it on a day-to-day. So I want to thank the Department of Transportation, the Department of Water and Power, and most definitely want to give a big thanks to First A.M.E. for giving us the opportunity to use this beautiful space that they've given us. Thank you all for being here. God bless each and every one of you. Enjoy your rest of your night. I wanted to make sure you guys got out of here by 6:30 or 6:39, so we're just a little over. I love you guys. Enjoy your day.